The wedding was supposed to be the happiest day Evelyn had seen in years. For one evening, there were no arguments, no old family problems, no painful memories. Only music, laughter, flowers, and smiling faces. Evelyn stood near the back of the reception hall and watched her son, Daniel, dance with his new wife, Claire. She smiled. Her son looked happy. That was all she had wanted. For months, Evelyn had helped with the wedding. She had chosen flowers. She had helped with the guest list. She had even stayed up late at night making small gift bags for the guests. It had been exhausting. But seeing Daniel smile made every sleepless night worth it. The photographer, a quiet man named Michael, moved around the room with 2 cameras. He had been hired by Claire's family. He seemed professional, calm, almost invisible. He took hundreds of pictures that night. The bride walking down the aisle. Daniel holding Claire's hand. The first dance. The cake. The family photographs. Everything looked perfect. At least, that was what Evelyn believed. The wedding ended a little after midnight. Guests slowly left the hall. Cars disappeared into the dark parking lot. Evelyn hugged Daniel before he left. Take care of her, she whispered. Daniel smiled. I will, Mom. Then he hugged her tightly. For a few seconds, Evelyn closed her eyes. She felt peaceful. She believed the hardest part of raising her son was finally over. She had no idea that before the next morning ended, that feeling would disappear. At 9:17 the next morning, Evelyn's phone rang. The number was not saved. She almost ignored it. Then she answered. Hello. There was silence. Then a man's voice came through. Is this Evelyn Carter? Yes, this is Michael, the wedding photographer. Evelyn smiled slightly. Oh, good morning. Is everything okay? Another silence. This time, it lasted longer. I need to talk to you, Michael said. His voice sounded strange. Not angry. Not confused. Afraid. Evelyn sat up in bed. About the wedding? Yes. Did something happen? I don't know how to explain this over the phone. Evelyn frowned. Then just tell me. Michael took a breath. I was going through the wedding photographs last night. That's normal, isn't it? Yes, he paused. But I noticed something. Evelyn waited. What kind of something? I think you need to see it yourself. Her stomach tightened. Is someone hurt? No. Did something happen to Daniel? No. Daniel is fine. Evelyn felt a little relief. Then Michael said something that made her blood run cold. There is a person in the background of several photographs. Evelyn looked toward the window. What person? I don't know. You don't know who you photographed. That's the problem. His voice became quieter. The person was not supposed to be there. Evelyn stood from the bed. What do you mean? I don't want to accuse anyone without being certain. Michael, you're frightening me. I'm sorry. He paused again. Can you come to my studio? When? As soon as you can. Evelyn looked at the clock. Now. Please. She agreed. 20-5 minutes later, Evelyn arrived at Michael's small studio. He opened the door before she could knock twice. The moment she entered, she knew something was wrong. Hundreds of wedding photographs covered his computer screen. Some were printed on a large table. Michael locked the door behind her. Evelyn noticed. Why did you lock it? Michael did not answer. He walked to the table. I looked at the photographs frame by frame. He picked up one photograph. It showed Daniel and Claire standing beneath a large flower arch. They were smiling. Their families stood behind them. Evelyn smiled when she saw it. That's beautiful. Michael pointed toward the far left side. Look there. Evelyn leaned closer. At first, she saw nothing unusual. Then she noticed a dark figure near a side hallway. A man stood partly hidden behind a curtain. His face was turned toward the wedding. But he was not smiling. He was watching. Who is that? Evelyn asked. I don't know. Maybe a guest. I thought that too. Michael placed another photograph beside it. It showed the same hallway. The man was still there. But this time, he was closer to a locked door. Evelyn's smile disappeared. When was this taken? 7 minutes later, Michael showed her a third photograph. The man was now standing directly beside the door. 7 minutes after that, he was gone. Evelyn looked at Michael. Did you see him that night? No. Then how did you notice him? I didn't. Michael turned toward his computer. The camera noticed him. He opened a larger image. The man's face became clearer. Evelyn stared at the screen. Something about him felt familiar. Very familiar. But she could not place him. Michael opened another photograph. This one had been taken during the reception. Daniel and Claire were dancing in the center of the room. Everyone was looking at them. Except one person. The same man stood near the hallway, but now he was holding something. A small brown envelope. Evelyn moved closer to the screen. What is that? I don't know. Can you make it clearer? Michael enlarged the photograph. The envelope became easier to see. There was a small mark on it, a black circle. Evelyn's face suddenly changed. She knew that mark. It belonged to a family document, a document connected to her father's old property. Where was that room? She asked. Michael looked at her. Behind the hallway. Was it locked? Yes. Who had the key? Michael shook his head. I don't know. Evelyn stepped away from the computer. Her heart was beating faster. She remembered something. Earlier that evening, Claire had asked her a strange question. She had asked whether Evelyn still kept the old property papers at home. At the time, Evelyn thought nothing of it. Now the memory felt different. Michael noticed the change in her face. What is it? Evelyn did not answer. She looked at the photograph again. Then she noticed something else. The man was not looking at the bride. He was not looking at Daniel. He was looking directly toward the camera. As if he knew someone was taking his picture. Michael lowered his voice. There is one more photograph. Evelyn looked at him. One more? Yes. He hesitated. I almost deleted it. Why? Because I thought it was useless. He opened the file. The photograph showed the private office behind the locked hallway. The door was slightly open. Someone stood inside. Evelyn leaned toward the screen. Her breathing stopped. The person inside was not the unknown man. It was someone else. Someone she knew. Someone who had spent the entire wedding smiling beside her. Someone she had trusted. Evelyn stared at the photograph. Then she whispered the name. Claire. Michael looked at her. Do you know her? Evelyn could barely speak. She's my son's wife. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Then Michael looked at the photograph again. His face became pale. Evelyn. What? There is something you need to understand. He opened the original file information. The timestamp appeared on the screen. Evelyn read it. The photograph had been taken at 10:43 p.m. Her eyes widened. At exactly 10:43. Claire had been standing in front of more than 100 guests. Evelyn remembered seeing her. Everyone had, but the photograph showed Claire inside the locked office. At the same time, Evelyn slowly looked at Michael. That can't be possible. Michael said nothing. Then he opened another image. This time, Claire was still inside the office. And standing beside her was the same mysterious man. But the worst part was not the man. It was what they were holding. The old family property document. Evelyn suddenly understood why Michael had sounded afraid. The wedding had not been as innocent as it looked. And someone had made a terrible mistake. They had forgotten about the camera. Michael looked at Evelyn. There's something else. Evelyn swallowed. What? Michael turned the screen toward her. The person in this photograph. He stopped. Then he pointed to the corner of the image. Was looking directly at me. Evelyn stared at the screen. The mysterious man had one hand on the office door. His eyes were fixed on the camera. And on his wrist was a watch. Evelyn recognized. It belonged to someone in her own family. Someone who had been standing beside her all night. Someone who knew exactly where the camera was. The wedding had ended, but the real story had only just begun. Evelyn could not take her eyes off the photograph. The man's watch was still visible on the screen. A silver watch, a thin black line across the face. She had seen it many times before. At family dinners. At Christmas. At Daniel's graduation. And the night before. At the wedding, her brother, Richard, had been wearing it. Richard was her father's only other child. He was also the person who had handled most of the old family property papers after their father's death. Evelyn slowly stepped back from the computer. No, she whispered. Michael watched her carefully. You know the watch. Evelyn nodded. My brother. Michael did not look surprised. That's what I thought. Evelyn turned toward him. You knew. I suspected. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wasn't sure. Michael opened another folder. I took more photographs than the ones I showed you. Hundreds of images appeared across the screen. Evelyn stood beside him. Michael moved through them one by one. Most showed normal wedding moments. People eating. Guests laughing. Daniel dancing. Claire talking to her mother. Then Michael stopped. A photograph showed Richard near the parking area. His back was turned. He was holding a phone. Another photograph showed Claire standing beside him. They were not smiling. They looked serious. Evelyn felt a cold feeling in her chest. When was this? 9:26. The reception had just started. Michael clicked again. A photograph showed Richard handing something to Claire, a small key. Evelyn stared at it. That key. She recognized it. It was the old brass key to her father's office. The office had been locked since his death. Nobody was supposed to have that key. Nobody except Evelyn. She suddenly remembered something. The key had disappeared from her desk 3 weeks earlier. At the time, she had blamed herself. She thought she had misplaced it. Now she knew better. Someone had taken it. Michael enlarged the photograph. Claire was holding the key tightly. Then another image appeared. Claire was walking toward the private hallway. Richard followed several steps behind her. Evelyn felt sick. They planned this. Michael nodded. But I don't think they planned for the camera to capture it. Evelyn sat down. For several seconds, she said nothing. The wedding had been full of people. People she knew. People she trusted. And while everyone was celebrating, Claire and Richard had been moving through the building like they had another purpose. Evelyn looked at Michael. What were they looking for? I don't know. Then let's find out. Michael hesitated. There is one thing. What? I checked the office after the wedding. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Why? Because I noticed the door was not fully closed. He opened another photograph. It showed the private office. A desk stood near the window. Several old boxes were stacked against the wall. One drawer was open. Evelyn immediately recognized the desk. It had belonged to her father. She had spent many afternoons sitting there as a child. What was missing? She asked. Michael zoomed in. I can't tell. Evelyn leaned closer. Then she noticed a small wooden box on the desk. Her father's old document box. Its lid was open. The box had been empty for years. But there was one thing inside that mattered. A blue folder. Evelyn's father had kept important property papers inside it. The folder was supposed to be with Evelyn. She had not seen it since her father's funeral. She suddenly understood. That folder. Michael looked at her. You know it. My father left something in it. What? Evelyn looked away. She did not answer. Michael waited. Finally, she said. The original ownership papers for the lake property. Michael frowned. I thought that property belonged to you. It does. Then why would Richard want the papers? Evelyn swallowed. Because he has been trying to sell it. Michael stared at her. Without your permission? Yes. Evelyn had discovered it months earlier. Richard had told the family that he was only checking the property's value, but later, Evelyn learned that he had contacted a developer. She stopped the deal before it went further. After that, Richard had acted offended. He claimed Evelyn did not trust her own brother. She had believed the argument was over. Now, she realized it had never ended. Michael looked troubled. He took those papers. He could try again. Evelyn stood. We need to find out if he has them. She drove home without telling anyone where she had been. When she arrived, the house looked normal. To normal. Daniel was sitting in the kitchen. He smiled when he saw her. Mom, where were you? Evelyn forced a smile. Just handling something. Daniel stood. Everything okay? She looked at her son. For a moment, she wanted to tell him everything, but she stopped herself. If Claire was involved, Daniel was already in the middle of it. She needed proof before she said anything. Everything is fine, Evelyn said. Daniel nodded. Then he asked, did Claire call you? Evelyn's heart stopped for a moment. Why? She said she wanted to talk to you. When? Tonight. Evelyn looked toward the hallway. Did she say why? Daniel shook his head. No, she just seemed nervous. That made Evelyn more worried. Claire had never seemed nervous around her. Not until now. A few hours later, Claire arrived. She entered with a warm smile. She carried a small box of wedding cake. Evelyn watched her carefully. Claire hugged her. Thank you again for everything. Evelyn hugged her back, but her eyes stayed open. Of course. They sat in the living room. Claire placed the cake on the table. I wanted to apologize. For what? For asking about your father's property papers before the wedding. Evelyn's heart began pounding. Claire lowered her eyes. I shouldn't have asked. Why did you? Claire paused. My family has been having financial problems. Evelyn said nothing. I thought maybe you could help. It sounded believable. Almost too believable. Evelyn steadied her face. Did Richard ask you to talk to me? Claire's expression changed. Only for a second, but Evelyn noticed. Why would you ask that? Just asking. Claire smiled nervously. No. The answer came too quickly. Evelyn knew she was lying, but she needed more. What happened to the brass key? Claire froze. What key? The key to my father's office. Claire stared at her. Then she laughed softly. I don't know anything about that. Evelyn smiled. Neither does Richard. Claire's face went pale. Before she could answer, the front door opened. Richard walked inside. He looked surprised to see Claire. What are you doing here? Claire stood quickly. I came to apologize to Evelyn. Richard looked at Evelyn. Then at Claire. Something passed between them. A silent message. Evelyn saw it. She knew they were communicating without words. Richard walked into the room. I hope everything is okay. Evelyn nodded. Everything is fine. Richard smiled, but his eyes were cold. He noticed the wedding photograph sitting on the table. Michael had printed one image for Evelyn. The image showing Richard near the office. Richard reached for it. Evelyn quickly placed her hand over the photograph. That's mine. Richard stopped. For 1 second, his expression changed. Then he smiled. Of course. He sat down. Nobody spoke. The room became painfully quiet. Then Richard's phone rang. He looked at the screen. His face changed. He stood and walked toward the hallway. Evelyn watched him. She waited. Then she heard him whisper, "Did you get it?" Evelyn's eyes widened. Richard lowered his voice. "No. She doesn't know." Evelyn stood silently. She moved closer to the hallway. Richard continued. The photographer saw too much. Evelyn's heart began racing. Then Richard said something that made her blood run cold. "We need to deal with him before he gives her the originals." Evelyn covered her mouth. They were not worried about the property anymore. They were worried about the photographs. And now Evelyn knew something much worse. They knew Michael had the originals. And they were planning to make sure he never had the chance to show them. Evelyn quietly stepped back. She reached for her phone. Her fingers shook as she opened the camera. She had to warn Michael. But before she could type a message, her phone screen lit up. A new message had arrived. From Michael. There were only 6 words. Evelyn, don't trust your son. She stared at the message. Her heart sank. Daniel was the one person she had never suspected. Then another message appeared. This time, it contained a photograph. Evelyn opened it. Her face went completely pale. The photograph showed Daniel standing outside the private office. And in his hand was the missing blue folder. The folder that contained her father's original property papers. Evelyn slowly lowered the phone. For the first time that night, she wondered if the betrayal went far deeper than Claire and Richard. Maybe her own son knew. Maybe he had known from the beginning. And if that was true, Evelyn had no idea who she could trust anymore. Evelyn stared at the photograph on her phone. Daniel stood outside the private office. The blue folder was in his hand, the same folder that had disappeared years ago, the same folder that Richard and Claire had been searching for. Evelyn felt as if the floor had moved beneath her. Her son, her own son. Could he really be part of this? She looked toward the living room. Daniel was still there. He was talking to Claire. He looked calm. Normal. Like nothing had happened. Evelyn quickly locked her phone. She could not let him see the message from Michael. She could not let anyone know what she had just discovered. Not yet. She walked back into the room. Daniel looked at her. Double quotes, "Mom, are you okay?" Evelyn forced herself to smile. "I'm just tired." Claire stood. "Maybe she needs some rest." Evelyn looked at Claire. The words sounded kind, but now every word felt like a lie. Richard was still watching her. His eyes stayed on her face. He was trying to read her. Evelyn realized she had to leave the room. She picked up her purse. "I have an early morning tomorrow." Daniel stood. "I'll walk you out." "No." The answer came too quickly. Daniel looked surprised. Evelyn softened her voice. "I mean, it's fine." "You stay?" She walked toward the door. As she reached it, Richard spoke. "Evelyn." She stopped. "Yes." "Don't make a mistake because you're upset." She turned around. "What do you mean?" Richard smiled. "Nothing." But Evelyn understood. It was not nothing. It was a warning. She left. Once inside her car, she locked the doors. Her hands were shaking. She opened Michael's message again. "Don't trust your son." Then she opened the photograph. Daniel was standing outside the office. The blue folder was clearly visible, but something bothered Evelyn. She zoomed in. Daniel was not looking at the camera. He was looking at someone standing behind it. Someone outside the frame. Evelyn studied the image carefully. Then she noticed the time. 10:51 p.m. That was only 8 minutes after the photograph showing Claire inside the office. 8 minutes. Too little time for everything that had happened. Evelyn called Michael. He answered immediately. "Did you get my message?" "Yes." "Are you somewhere safe?" I'm in my car. Good. Evelyn took a breath. Why did you tell me not to trust Daniel? Michael was silent. Michael. I need to explain something. Then explain. The photograph you received was not taken by me. Evelyn froze. What? My camera was on a tripod that night. What does that mean? It means someone else used it. Evelyn looked at the photograph again. Who? I don't know. Then how did you send me that picture? I found it in the original camera files. Michael's voice became tense. There are several photographs in there that I never took. Evelyn felt cold. Someone took control of your camera, maybe. Why? I don't know. Evelyn closed her eyes. Everything was becoming more confusing. She asked, Are you sure Daniel was holding the folder? Yes. Then why did you tell me not to trust him? Because I saw what happened after that. Evelyn's heart began beating faster. What happened? I can't tell you over the phone. Michael, please. I have proof. What proof? A video. Evelyn sat still. What video? Someone recorded the hallway that night. Who? I don't know. Where is it? Michael paused. At my studio. Evelyn immediately started the car. Stay there. Don't come alone. Why? Because I think someone is watching me. Evelyn's grip tightened around the steering wheel. I'll be there in 10 minutes. She drove through the dark streets. Her mind raced. Daniel could not be part of this. She refused to believe it. She remembered him as a little boy. The first day he rode a bicycle. His first day at school. The night he called her after his father died. He had always been her child, her safe place, but the photograph was real, and Michael had warned her. When Evelyn reached the studio, the front door was open. She stopped outside. Michael. No answer. She entered slowly. The studio was dark. One lamp was still on. A chair had been knocked over. Several photographs were scattered across the floor. Michael. Nothing. Evelyn pulled out her phone. She called him. His phone began ringing somewhere inside the room. Not from his pocket. From the floor. Evelyn followed the sound. His phone was lying beneath the desk. The screen was cracked. Evelyn's heart dropped. She turned around. Someone had been there. Someone had wanted her to find the phone. Then she noticed something on the desk, a small memory card. Beside it was a handwritten note. Her name was written on the front. Evelyn opened it. There were only 2 lines. The photographs are not the real evidence. Look at what happened before the wedding. Evelyn read it twice. Then she heard a sound behind her, a door closing. She turned. Nobody was there. She quickly grabbed the memory card and left. Back inside her car, she called the police, but before she could explain, her phone rang. It was Daniel. Evelyn stared at his name. She almost did not answer. Finally, she pressed the button. Mom, his voice sounded worried. Where are you? Out. Are you okay? Yes. A pause. Then Daniel said something that shocked her. I know about the photographs. Evelyn said nothing. I know what you're thinking. What am I thinking? You think I stole the folder. Evelyn's heart sank. Did you? Daniel took a long breath. Yes. Evelyn closed her eyes. For a moment, she could not speak. Why? Because I was trying to protect you. She almost laughed. Protect me? Mom, please listen. Why did you take my father's papers? I didn't steal them. Then what did you do? I found them. Where? At the wedding. Evelyn looked through the windshield. Who gave them to you? Daniel did not answer. Daniel. I can't tell you. Why? Because if they know I told you, they'll hurt you. Evelyn felt a chill. Who? Daniel's voice became quiet. Uncle Richard. Evelyn's eyes widened. Richard. He has been controlling everything. Then why were you with the folder? Because I was trying to get it away from him. Evelyn stared at the dark road. The story was changing again. Daniel continued. I knew he wanted the property. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know who else was involved. Evelyn swallowed. Claire. Daniel was silent. That silence was enough. Daniel, I don't know. You're lying. I'm not. Then tell me what happened. Daniel's voice broke. I saw Claire and Uncle Richard in the office. Evelyn's breathing stopped. I followed them. What happened? They were arguing. About what? The property. And the folder. Richard had it. Daniel explained that he had taken the folder when Richard left the office. He had planned to give it to Evelyn the next morning. But before he could, Claire saw him. She warned him to stay quiet. Then someone else entered the hallway. Someone Daniel refused to name. Evelyn felt frustrated. Who was it? I can't. Daniel, you have to tell me. I can't, Mom. Then the line suddenly went silent. Evelyn looked at her phone. The call had ended. She called back. No answer. Again. Nothing. Then a message appeared. Don't come looking for me. Evelyn's heart began pounding. She immediately called Michael. Still nothing. She looked down at the memory card in her hand. The police were still on the line, waiting for her to explain, but before Evelyn could speak, another message arrived. This one was from an unknown number. It contained a single photograph. Evelyn opened it. Her blood ran cold. It showed Daniel sitting inside a dark room. His hands were tied. A chair stood behind him. And beside his face was a handwritten message. The next person disappears if she talks. Evelyn stared at the screen. The police officer was still asking questions, but Evelyn could barely hear him. Her son was in danger. Michael was missing. The evidence was in her hand. And somewhere in the darkness, someone knew exactly what she had discovered. Evelyn looked at the memory card. For the first time, she understood the truth. The wedding photographs had never been the real secret. They were only the beginning. The real secret had happened before the wedding, and whatever was hidden on that memory card was powerful enough to make someone willing to silence her son. Evelyn took a deep breath. Then she made a decision. She would not run. She would find Daniel. She would find Michael. And this time, she would uncover the truth before someone else disappeared. Evelyn sat in her car for several seconds. The memory card was still in her hand. Her son's photograph was still open on her phone. Daniel was tied to a chair. Someone had threatened to hurt him, and Michael was missing. Evelyn could feel fear rising inside her, but she forced herself to stay calm. Panic would not save Daniel. She looked at the police officer's number on her screen. Then she called. This time, she told him everything. She explained the threatening message. She showed him the photograph of Daniel. She gave him Michael's address. Then she told him about the memory card. The officer listened carefully. Don't open it on your phone, he said. Why? If someone put a tracker or harmful file on it, we don't know what you're dealing with. Evelyn understood. She drove directly to the police station. Before she reached it, her phone rang again. It was an unknown number. She answered. Nobody spoke. Then she heard a man's voice. Did you tell the police? Evelyn stopped breathing. Where is my son? Safe. Let me speak to him. No. Then prove he's alive. A short silence followed. You have something that belongs to us. The memory card. Yes. What is on it? You already know. I don't. The man laughed quietly. You will. The call ended. Evelyn arrived at the station minutes later. An officer took the memory card. They did not open it on a normal computer. Instead, they transferred it to a secure system. At first, there seemed to be nothing unusual. Only photographs. Wedding photographs. Old photographs. Random files. Then the officer found a hidden video folder. There were 4 video files. The first was dated 3 weeks before the wedding. Evelyn stared at the screen. The video showed her father's old lake property. It was filmed at night. A car pulled up near the main house. Richard stepped out. Then Claire appeared. Evelyn leaned closer. They walked toward the house, but they were not alone. A third person came out of the car. The video was too dark to show the face. The officer paused it. Can you recognize the person? Evelyn shook her head. No. The second video showed the same 3 people inside the property office. Richard opened an old metal cabinet. Claire stood beside him. The unknown person watched the door. Then Richard removed a box. Evelyn recognized it immediately. Her father's document box. The officer looked at her. That's the box from the wedding photograph. Evelyn nodded. Her hands were trembling. The third video was even more disturbing. It showed Richard speaking to the unknown person. The audio was clear. We can't sell it until she signs. The unknown person asked, and if she refuses? Richard replied, she won't. How do you know? Because she trusts family. Evelyn closed her eyes. The words hurt more than she expected. Her trust had become their weapon. Then Richard said something that changed everything. Once the wedding is over, she won't have the original papers. The video ended. Evelyn looked at the officer. They planned this before the wedding. Yes. But why the wedding? The officer opened the 4th video. This one was recorded 2 days before the ceremony. Richard sat at a table. Claire sat across from him. The unknown person stood behind them. Richard placed a document on the table. The property is worth millions. Claire looked nervous. And Evelyn. She signs the transfer. What if she checks the papers? She won't. The unknown person finally spoke. She has to believe Daniel is involved. Evelyn froze. The room became silent. The officer paused the video. Evelyn stared at the screen. Daniel. The plan was suddenly clear. They wanted Evelyn to believe her own son had betrayed her. If she became angry enough, she might sign anything just to protect him. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. They had planned to use her love for her son against her. But there was still one question. Who was the third person? The officer enhanced the video. The face became slightly clearer. Evelyn stared. She knew that face, but she could not believe it. That can't be. The officer looked at her. Who is it? Evelyn whispered the name. Mark. Mark had been her father's old lawyer. He had handled the property papers for years. He had attended the wedding. He had even given a speech, and Evelyn had trusted him. Suddenly, everything made sense. Mark knew where the original papers were. He knew the property's value. He knew the legal process. And he knew exactly how Evelyn would react if she believed Daniel had betrayed her. But there was another problem. Daniel was still missing. Evelyn turned toward the officer. We need to find him. The police began tracing the threatening messages. They found a location. An old storage building outside town. Evelyn wanted to go with them. The officer refused. You stay here. But that's my son. We understand. I need to know he's safe. You will. The police left. Evelyn waited. 10 minutes felt like an hour. Then her phone rang. It was Daniel. She answered immediately. Daniel. His breathing was heavy. Double quotes. Mom. Where are you? I don't know. Are you hurt? No. Can you see anything? It's dark. Listen to me. The police are coming. Daniel became silent. Then he whispered. Don't trust the police. Evelyn froze. What? I don't know who is helping them. Daniel, what happened? I found something. What? The person behind all of this. Evelyn's heart raced. Who? Daniel took a breath. It's not Mark. Evelyn stared at the phone. What do you mean? Mark is involved, but he's not in charge. Then who is? Daniel hesitated. Mom. A loud sound came from his side of the call. Daniel gasped. The line went silent. Daniel, nothing. Daniel. The call ended. Evelyn stood frozen. Then another message arrived. This time, it came from Daniel's phone. He knows you have the video. Evelyn looked at the police officer beside her. How did they know? The officer's face changed. He immediately took out his phone. A moment later, he looked up. The location of the memory card may have been tracked. Evelyn felt sick, but the card is here. He shook his head. Not necessarily. What do you mean? He looked at the computer. The files may contain hidden information. Evelyn suddenly remembered Michael's warning. The photographs were not the real evidence. Look at what happened before the wedding. She looked at the screen again. The fourth video was still paused. The unknown person stood behind Richard and Claire. The face was visible now. Evelyn stepped closer. She stared at it. Then her mouth fell open. The person was not Mark. It was not Richard. It was not anyone she had suspected. It was someone who had been standing beside her during the entire wedding. Someone who had hugged her. Someone who had cried during the ceremony. Someone who had told Evelyn that family should always protect each other. Evelyn whispered the name, Sarah. Sarah was Evelyn's younger sister, the person Evelyn had trusted more than anyone. The person who had helped her after their father's death. The person who knew where every document was kept. The person who had convinced Evelyn to hire Michael's team. The room suddenly felt cold. Evelyn remembered something else. Sarah had been the one who suggested that the wedding photographer use the side hallway for family photographs. She had been the one who knew the private office would be empty. She had been the one who had asked Evelyn about the property papers only days before the wedding. Evelyn felt tears roll down her face. The betrayal was bigger than she had imagined. Richard was involved. Claire was involved. Mark was involved. But Sarah had been at the center of it. And now Sarah knew Evelyn had the video. Evelyn's phone rang again. This time, the caller ID appeared. Sarah. Evelyn stared at the screen. She did not answer. The phone kept ringing. Then a message appeared. Pick up, Evelyn. It's time you learned why your father really left that property to you. Evelyn's blood ran cold. She had always believed her father left the property to her because he trusted her. But what if that was not the real reason? What if the property had been hiding something else? Something Sarah, Richard, Claire, and Mark had spent years trying to find. Evelyn slowly looked back at the fourth video. Behind Sarah was an old wooden wall. On that wall hung a large family portrait. Evelyn zoomed in. There was a small mark beneath the portrait. A black circle. The same mark she had seen on the brown envelope. Her father had left that mark for a reason. And suddenly Evelyn understood. The wedding photographs had not uncovered the secret. They had only shown her where to look. The real secret was still hidden inside her father's property, and someone had been trying to reach it for years. Evelyn could not stop looking at the screen. The black circle beneath the old family portrait seemed to stare back at her. It was the same mark. The mark on the envelope. The mark on the property papers. The mark that had appeared again and again in the photographs. Now Evelyn understood that it was not a random symbol. Her father had used it for a reason. She turned toward the officer. "Can you find the property records?" "We can. I need to go there." The officer shook his head. "Not alone, I know. And not tonight." Evelyn looked at him. "My son is missing. We are still searching for him. But whatever they are looking for is there." The officer did not argue. A short time later, 2 officers agreed to take Evelyn to the property. The old lake house stood almost an hour outside town. Evelyn had not visited it in years. The road was dark. Trees covered both sides. The house appeared only after a sharp turn. It looked exactly as she remembered. Old, quiet, almost forgotten. But Evelyn knew better now. Someone had been coming here. Recently. The officers checked the outside first. No cars. No broken windows. No movement. They entered through the front door. Dust covered the floor. The air smelled old. Evelyn walked slowly toward her father's office. Her hand touched the door. For a moment, she remembered being a child, her father sitting behind the desk, his old glasses resting on a book, his voice telling her that some things were worth protecting. She had never understood what he meant. Until now. The office was almost empty. The portrait hung on the wall. It showed Evelyn's father standing beside his 3 children. Evelyn. Richard. Sarah. The officer lifted a flashlight. "There." He pointed beneath the frame. The black circle was still there. Evelyn stepped closer. She touched it. Nothing happened. Then she noticed something strange. The portrait was slightly crooked. She pushed it gently. It moved. Behind it was a small metal box built into the wall. Evelyn's breath caught. The officer carefully opened it. Inside was an old key, a folded letter, and a small photograph. Evelyn picked up the letter. Her father's handwriting was unmistakable. Her hands began to shake. She opened it. The letter was addressed to her. "Evelyn, if you are reading this, then something has gone wrong." She stopped. The officer waited. Evelyn continued. "I did not leave the lake property to you because it was valuable." Her eyes filled with tears. "I left it to you because you are the only one in this family I believe will protect what is hidden beneath it." Evelyn looked up. "What is beneath it?" She kept reading. "Your grandfather discovered something many years ago. Something people were willing to kill for." Evelyn's breathing became shallow. The letter continued. "I kept it hidden because I knew my own family could not be trusted with it." She looked at the old photograph. Her father had been afraid, not of strangers, of his own family. Then she read the final line. "Never trust the person who tells you this secret is about money." Evelyn lowered the letter. The officer looked at her. "What does the key open?" She stared at it. "I don't know." Then she remembered something. The old lake house had a basement. Her father had always kept it locked. Evelyn had never been allowed inside. They walked downstairs. The basement was cold. The officers checked every corner. At the far end was a heavy wooden door. There was no handle, only a small keyhole. Evelyn held up the key. It fit perfectly. She turned it. The lock clicked. The door opened. Inside was a narrow room. There were shelves. Boxes. Old files. Photographs. And a metal cabinet. Evelyn walked inside. The officer opened the cabinet. Inside were documents. Old bank records. Property records. Names. Dates. Payments. Evelyn began reading. Then she stopped. One name appeared repeatedly. Richard. Another name appeared beside it. Sarah. And then another. Mark. Evelyn's single quotes. Heart sank. They had been working together for years. Not months. Not weeks. Years. But there was something else. A 4th name. A name Evelyn recognized immediately. Claire. Claire had not joined them recently. She had been part of the plan before she even met Daniel. Evelyn felt sick. The wedding had not created the betrayal. It had simply brought the plan to its final stage. The officer opened another file. Inside was a photograph. It showed Richard, Sarah, and Mark standing beside the lake house. The date was 12 years earlier. Evelyn stared at it. 12 years. The officer nodded. They've been doing this for a long time. Evelyn remembered her father's death. He had died 12 years earlier. Suddenly, another thought entered her mind. Wait. She grabbed the photograph. My father died 12 years ago. The officer looked at her. Yes. Evelyn's voice became quiet. They started this before he died. A sound came from upstairs. Everyone froze. The officers reached for their weapons. Another sound followed. A door slammed. Someone was inside the house. The officers moved toward the stairs. Evelyn stayed in the basement. She heard footsteps. Then silence. One officer returned. Nobody. Evelyn looked confused. Then what made that sound? He pointed toward the floor. There were fresh footprints. Wet footprints. Someone had walked through the house recently. The officer followed them. They ended near the back door. Whoever had been there was gone. Evelyn looked at the documents again. Then she noticed something. One file was missing. A space had been left between two boxes. The label on the empty space read, Original Agreement, 2014. Evelyn remembered her father's words. Something people were willing to kill for. She looked at the officer. What is the original agreement? He shook his head. We need to find it. Suddenly, Evelyn's phone rang. Sarah. Again. This time, Evelyn answered. Where is my son? Sarah's voice was calm. Safe. Give him to me. You don't understand what you're dealing with. I understand enough. You found the basement. Evelyn froze. How do you know? Sarah laughed softly. Because I know this house better than you. Where are you? Close. Why did you do this? Silence. Then Sarah said, Because your father made a mistake. What mistake? He chose you. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. He trusted me. He trusted the wrong person. Then why did you all need my property? Sarah's voice changed. Because it was never your property. Evelyn felt confused. What does that mean? The lake house was only the key. The key to what? Sarah did not answer. Instead, she said something that made Evelyn's blood run cold. Ask yourself why your father kept the original agreement hidden. Then the call ended. Evelyn stood frozen. The officer looked at her. What did she say? Before Evelyn could answer, they heard another sound. This time it came from the basement. A low mechanical click. The wall behind the metal cabinet moved. A hidden section opened. Inside was another room. But this room was not filled with old papers. It was empty except for one chair. And on the chair was a phone. The screen was already on. A video was playing. Evelyn stepped closer. Her heart nearly stopped. Daniel appeared on the screen. He was sitting in the same chair from the threatening photograph, but now his hands were free. He looked directly into the camera. Mom, if you're seeing this, they brought you here. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Daniel continued. Please listen carefully. He looked frightened. They don't want the property. Evelyn leaned closer. They want what Grandpa hid beneath it. The video suddenly flickered. Daniel looked behind him. Someone had entered the room. He whispered one final sentence. Mom, the person who planned all of this is someone you haven't suspected. The screen went black. Evelyn stared at it. Then a voice came from behind her. You should have listened to your father. Evelyn slowly turned around. Sarah stood in the doorway. She was holding the missing original agreement. But she was not alone. Richard stood beside her. And between them was Daniel. Alive. But terrified. Sarah smiled. Then she held up the document. Now, she said quietly, you are finally going to learn why your father chose you. Evelyn looked at her son. Then at the document. And for the first time, she realized the wedding photographs had only exposed the smallest part of the truth. The real betrayal had started 12 years ago. And the final secret was about to be revealed. Evelyn stood completely still. Sarah was holding the original agreement. Richard stood beside her. And Daniel was between them. Alive. That should have been enough to make Evelyn feel relief. But her son's face told her something was wrong. He looked exhausted. Afraid. His eyes kept moving between Sarah and Evelyn. Mom, he said quietly. Evelyn took one step forward. Are you hurt? Daniel shook his head. No. Sarah smiled. See? He's fine. Evelyn looked at her. Let him go. Sarah held up the document. You still don't understand. I understand enough. No. Sarah's voice became cold. You think this is about stealing your property? Richard laughed softly. It was never about the house. Evelyn looked at the agreement in Sarah's hand. Then tell me what it is about. Sarah looked at Daniel. Then she looked back at Evelyn. Your father left something behind. What? A record. What record? Sarah slowly opened the agreement. Something that could destroy several people. Evelyn's heart tightened. Sarah continued. Your father discovered that money was being moved through the family business. Richard looked away. Millions of dollars. Evelyn stared at him. Her father had always been careful with money. He had built everything slowly. He had never spoken about financial problems. Sarah continued. Richard was taking money. Richard immediately turned toward her. That's not true. Sarah ignored him. Mark helped hide it. Evelyn looked at Richard. Then Sarah. What about Claire? Sarah's expression changed. Claire was brought in later. Why? Because Daniel was the easiest way to get close to you. Evelyn felt her chest tighten. Claire had married her son for the plan. The thought hurt more than she expected. Daniel lowered his head. I'm sorry, Mom. Evelyn looked at him. You didn't know. Not at first. When did you find out? Daniel swallowed. After the wedding. He explained that he had found Richard and Claire in the office. He had taken the blue folder because he wanted to protect Evelyn. But he had not known who else was involved. Then Sarah had found him. She had told him that if he stayed quiet, nobody would get hurt. Daniel had pretended to cooperate. He had secretly taken photographs. That was how he had ended up with evidence of his own family. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid they would hurt you. Evelyn reached toward him. Come here. Daniel walked into her arms. For a few seconds, mother and son held each other. Richard looked angry. Enough. Evelyn turned. You used my son. Richard shook his head. You don't know the whole story. I know enough. No, you don't. Richard pointed at Sarah. Ask her why your father chose you. Evelyn looked at her sister. Sarah's face had become pale. Evelyn remembered the letter. Her father had written that he trusted her to protect what was hidden. Why me? Sarah said nothing. Why did Dad leave everything to me? Sarah looked down. Because he knew. Knew what? That you were the only one who would never sell it. Evelyn stared at her. Sarah finally admitted the truth. Their father had discovered the financial theft years earlier. He had planned to expose Richard and Mark, but before he could do it, he became seriously ill. He feared what would happen to the family if the truth came out. So he created a plan. He moved the important records into a hidden room. Then he left the property to Evelyn. Not because he wanted her to become wealthy. Because he wanted the evidence protected. Evelyn slowly understood. The property had been a safe place. The house was not the treasure. The evidence was. Sarah had spent 12 years trying to find it. Richard had spent 12 years trying to destroy it. And Mark had spent 12 years trying to keep it hidden. Evelyn looked at the original agreement. Where are the records? Sarah smiled. That's what we want to know. Evelyn frowned. You don't have them, no. Sarah looked toward the wall. Your father split the evidence into 2 parts. Evelyn remembered the hidden room. The files, the empty space, the missing agreement. Sarah nodded. The agreement tells us where the second half is. Evelyn looked at the document. Then she noticed something. There was a small black circle in the corner. The same mark. She took a step closer. That symbol. Sarah nodded. It is a code. Evelyn studied the page. Suddenly, she remembered the wedding photographs. The brown envelope. The office. The portrait. The black circle. Everything was connected. The symbol was not a warning. It was a direction. Evelyn looked at the agreement again. A small line of numbers had been written beneath the symbol. She read them quietly. 3, 7, 11. Sarah's expression changed. What? Evelyn smiled for the first time. I know where the second record is. Everyone stared at her. She pointed toward the old family portrait. The 3 children. Richard frowned. The portrait. Yes. Evelyn looked at the 3 figures. Her father. Richard. Sarah. And herself. 3 children. 7, 11. Then she remembered something her father used to say: when you forget where something is, count what you see. Evelyn looked around the room. 3 family portraits. 7 books on the shelf. 11 wooden floorboards between the desk and the wall. She walked to the 11th board. Richard suddenly moved toward her. Stop. The police officers stepped forward. Richard froze. Evelyn lifted the floorboard. Underneath was a metal box. Everyone went silent. She opened it. Inside were bank records, contracts, letters, photographs, and a small recorder. The officer picked it up. He pressed the button. Their father's voice filled the room. If anyone is hearing this, then my fear was justified. Evelyn covered her mouth. Her father's voice continued. I know Richard has been stealing from the business. Richard shook his head. No. But the recording continued. Mark knows. Sarah knows. Sarah began crying. I confronted them. The room became silent. I could not trust them after that. Evelyn looked at her sister. Her father had known. He had known everything. The recording continued. I am leaving the property to Evelyn because she has never betrayed this family. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. She must never sell it. The recording ended. Nobody spoke. Then the police moved. Richard was arrested. Sarah was taken into custody. Mark was arrested later that night. The financial records were enough to open a major investigation. The evidence from Michael's photographs was added to the case. Claire cooperated with investigators. She admitted that she had married Daniel because Richard had promised her money. The marriage ended quickly. But Evelyn did not care about Claire anymore. Her focus was Michael. The police found him the next morning. He had been locked inside an old storage room. He was shaken but alive. He handed Evelyn a small envelope. I found this before they took me. Evelyn opened it. Inside was one final photograph. It showed the wedding reception. Everyone was smiling. Daniel and Claire stood in the center. Richard stood behind them. Sarah was near the wall. Mark was talking to a guest. And Michael stood near the camera. Evelyn studied the photograph. Then she noticed something. Her father was not in the photograph. Of course, he had been dead for years. But beside Evelyn stood an empty chair. A chair that had been placed there during the wedding. Evelyn remembered asking who had placed it there. Sarah had told her it was for an elderly guest. It had never been used. Evelyn turned the photograph over. There was writing on the back. Michael had written it. The photographer did not find the secret. The family left it in the picture. Evelyn stared at the words. She finally understood. The empty chair had been placed beside her for a reason. It had been her father's old chair. Someone in the family had wanted to remind her of him. But nobody had expected the camera to capture what happened around it. The wedding had exposed everything. The betrayal, the lies, the hidden records, and the people who had spent years pretending to love her. Months later, Evelyn returned to the lake house. She repaired the old office. She kept her father's desk. She placed the wedding photograph inside a frame. Daniel visited her often. Their relationship slowly healed. He still carried guilt. But Evelyn reminded him that he had tried to protect her. One evening, Daniel asked her something. Do you hate them? Evelyn looked through the window. No. Why not? Because hate would mean they still control me. Daniel smiled. Evelyn touched the photograph. The truth was enough. She had never planned revenge. She had only wanted answers. But the truth had done something revenge never could. It had taken everything the betrayers had built and turned it against them. Their lies became evidence. Their secrets became proof. Their greed became their downfall. And the wedding photographer, he had only been doing his job. Taking pictures, capturing smiles, saving memories. He never knew that one small detail in the background would uncover a 12-year secret. A secret that had been hidden behind money, family, and lies. Evelyn kept that first photograph, the one with the mysterious man near the hallway, the one that started everything. Whenever she looked at it, she remembered the call, the fear in Michael's voice, the words that changed her life. You need to see what I found in the photos. And Evelyn finally understood something her father had known all along. Sometimes the truth does not knock on the door. Sometimes it hides in the background. Waiting for someone brave enough to notice it.